Good evening, everyone, and welcome to episode 13 of the Integrity Racing Show. I'm your host, Todd Thomas. I'm joined here tonight by Lake Administrator Jacob Fife, as always. And also joining us tonight is our sponsor from the Loudon race, Tyler Herr. So we've got a few things that we'll talk about, the typical rundown, talk about the race that, well, I guess the two races that were at Loudon. We'll update you on the Chase standings, talk about that for a little bit, hit up the Rookie of the Year, the caution count, all that good stuff to come. I know our league administrator's got some league updates that he's going to pass along to us. So, really quickly, let's jump into the Loudon results here. Matt Bontempi gets his first win of the year. I know that was unfortunately I had to miss it, but I'm sure that was a really exciting moment for him. Andrew Fayesh comes home in second, and Michael Dool in third. So I wasn't there, guys. Give me a little bit of a recap. It sounds like there was a lot of close racing there at the lead. Tyler, you were up front towards the top six. Jacob, you finished in fifth. Jacob, you were up fighting for the top five position. Kind of talk us through the closing stages of the race there.
Yeah, it was a pretty fun deal. I think we had about 15 laps to run there for the finish, and there was a great battle for the win there between Andrew and Michael. They battled side by side for about 3 or 4 laps, really, neck and neck, and they kept things pretty darn clean. And then going into one, Michael ran up the track just a little bit and got into Andrew. Tough racing, a tight track at New Hampshire, and Matt was able to take advantage of it and just was able to get below him. I tried to follow him through there. I was in fourth at the time, and things got a little interesting come off of two, but Matt was able to make it stick and hold on, and just great racing all around. Everybody was able to keep it pretty clean until about 4 to go or something like that. And just like I said, it was a great race overall, though, once we got things going. And a great green flag run there in the middle, probably from about lap 20 or so till about lap 130, something like that. So awesome racing all in all, and definitely thank everybody for coming out.
All right, Tyler, talk us through your race a little bit. As Jacob said, there were only 3 cautions in this race for 12 laps. It's not your typical Loudon race. We're used to typically you're going to get the 8 to 10 lap runs at Loudon, but we had a good long green flag run there. Talk us through your race on Monday night.
Yeah, started 12th, made my way up into the top 10 just barely. Caution came out around lap 20 or so. So I went down pit road, went down it again. Me and William Dunn had the same idea, just sort of hang out in the back. And from there, it was, for me personally, it was uneventful. I just followed William Dunn around. We went from like 30th or something all the way back up into the top 10. And that second to last caution where we restart with 15 to go, that was the craziest race I had. Had to avoid Schetzler falling back through the field after a 2-tire call. Should have been 4, but not 2. So I had to get around him, and then about 4 to go, the caution came out. I was sitting in 6th place, so I'll take it. I'll take it.
All right, and one of the more unique races that we've had this year because we had a rain delay and then a restart. So Jacob, kind of talk us through what happened there and what caused that situation.
Yeah, every once in a while I can be human and make mistakes. Basically what happened is when you go through and set up the sessions and stuff, there's certain things that change automatically back and forth depending on whether you're at a road course race or you're at a oval race. The cautions is not one of those things. So, for example, or there's things you have to reset, like the incident cap you have to put in every week to make sure it's right, or the I rating cap that we have, or minimum in our case. But you gotta, when you do road courses, it sets to off, and then once we go back to ovals, you got to turn it back on again. Well, I didn't turn it back on again. So that issue was noticed around lap 15 or so. The admin, we had a discussion between the admins, and we made the decision to restart the race and just do everything over again. So my mistake, my fault. I take responsibility and got it corrected, and we'll move on to Indianapolis and go from there. But like I said, all in all, the racing itself was really good. I'm very proud of that, and that the racing seems to have gotten better over the past few weeks, as compared to some issues we've had in the past this year. So definitely happy and proud about that, and we'll move on.
All right, Tyler, as Jacob talked about, the racing has gotten a lot better. We haven't had nearly as many cautions as maybe we did back in the Martinsville and Richmond days. You've been somebody that's been around the league for a couple of years now. What have you noticed on the racetrack that's maybe helping to clean things up a little bit?
Well, starting off with the qualifying format, I think it really sort of helps get people to take care of their cars a bit more when coming into it. But I think as the year goes on, people really start to learn who they're dealing with, who they're running with, and then sort of race each other accordingly, and just a little bit more respect for each other out on the track there, since we're, I guess, halfway now. So, yeah, we pretty much all know who we're dealing with, as I said before then.
All right, so let's really quickly finish up our recap of Loudon going through the top 10 here. Matt Bontempi again with the win. We talked about Fesh and Jip Gould finishing get there. Another good run for Guillermo Alvarez, who just keeps stringing quality finishes each week and getting himself a top 5 with a 4th place. Jacob and Tyler finishing 5th and 6th. A good run for Cody Smith to finish 7th. William Dunn finishes 8th. Ty McWhorter 9th. Brad Wren in 10th. And as we discussed, Chris Schitzer with a bit of a misguided 2-tire pit stop call, drops down to 11th. So let's go ahead and update everybody on the Chase standings, if I can get those to load here. On our Chase standings, thank you to Mr. Adam de Blasio, who does these for us each week, and these are a big help to everyone. You can see here, these are the updated to-the-moment Chase standings. You can see the drivers that have a win are bumped up. So on Monday night, Matt Bontempi clinches his spot into the Chase. I believe Matt has already completed the minimum requirement number of races, or is pretty close to it and should get there. Jacob Fife is just outside at the top point getter right now. It looks like Jacob's probably safe unless some major surprises happen in the last few weeks. But looking at that, Tyler, the Chase field starting to take hold a little bit. The one caveat in this is if a couple drivers like Matt Busa and Colton Landis meet the minimum Chase requirement. But Tyler, the Chase standings are starting to maybe formulate a little bit.
Yeah, from there it really sort of looks like it's a bit cut and dry as far as I'd say the top 12 go. The real battle there is going to be between 13th and 20th. I think Chris isn't too far outside of that as well. So really the battle for the bubble spots there, that's really going to heat up in the next couple of races. I'm probably going ahead of myself here, but there's Watkins Glen, there's Bristol, and you have Richmond. Darlington's going to be in there, so there's a lot of fun tracks, but anything can happen on them. So, I really think that top 12 at this point are pretty much secure unless some other people start to put some wins on the board there.
All right, and we just talked about Guillermo Alvarez. He's sitting right on that bubble. That line could move on him, but he keeps getting these good finishes, getting another 4th place finish, creating a little bit of space between himself and Jay Heisman and the rest of the bubble. But we might see that line move a little bit. That's important to remember because you do have to make that minimum Chase requirement of 14 starts. So Jacob, that line might move. How do you think that impacts the drivers that are sitting on the bubble? How do you think you would attack it if you were somebody like Brad Wren that's sitting there going, I don't know what the line's going to look like?
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting way to go about things. I know that certainly affected the race back at Loudon. When I talked to Chris after the race, I know Tyler mentioned his 2-tire call. That was at the forefront of his mind. He thought Loudon was his place to win, so he did what he thought was best to try to get that win. Everybody around him disagreed with him, but he did what he thought he needed to do. So I think those drivers on the cut line, there's like a Trevor Dalton who's just off the picture there. One of our teammates, I know, he made the chase last year. So he's definitely looking to try to get in there and find a way. The easiest way, well, it's the most difficult way, but the simplest way to take care of that is just win. And I wouldn't be shocked if another driver before the chase happens, if another driver outside of that top 16 gets another win and shifts that line. And once that happens, I mean, the intensity and the interest of how this is going to develop just keeps increasing. So you gotta be consistent. You gotta have Guillermo-like finishes, as you've seen him do in the past few weeks. But you need that win. And if you can get the win, you're gonna go and get it. So definitely an interesting balance to try to strike between. I believe it was the last 8 races or so we have left before Richmond.
Absolutely, and it adds an extra little dynamic of excitement in the race. Let's put ourselves in somebody like Carlos Fonseca's shoes right now, who's only one spot back. Seeing a driver like Matt Bontempi kind of get us not a surprise win. Matt's a good driver, but a win that maybe no one was expecting to take a spot away from Carlos. That's going to hurt some drivers, and I think Tyler's spot on right there. That Watkins Glen race looms large for somebody that might be able to steal a win if Busa isn't able to show up that night or something like that. So it should be it should be an interesting race to the finish. Let's update everyone on the Rookie of the Year standings, and Jacob, kind of talk people through what they're kind of looking at here, because right now we show Adam Adam DeBlasio with a 34-point lead over Ty McWhorter, a 38-point lead over Brandon Burkroff, and a 39-point lead over Brad Wren. Those guys are kind of, but Adam's got a huge gap there, over about a 35-40-point lead on the field, but that's going to change as drop weeks come into it. Is that right?
Yeah, basically how that works, and I'm sure after I'm done talking, the spreadsheet will pop back up. But basically, Adam is starting to hit his drop weeks. After 17 races, your least accrued points over the season get dropped and get replaced with your better results. So obviously, since Adam has made almost every race this season, he's the first one to hit the cap. But in doing so, this also allows good drivers, also allows very good drivers like Drew Carroll or Brendan Burkroff or the other one's going to come to me. Hold on.
Brad Wren.
Thank you, Brad Wren, to close the gap until they start to hit their drop-off area of 17 races. So it's gonna condense down, and then it's going to be who's the most consistent, really, or who is able to maybe get a win with some bonus points and get up there. So the race, while Adam does have a comfortable lead at the moment, that more than likely, as time goes down, will shrink at least a little bit. But that remains to be seen how much it will and how that'll impact the standings as the season goes forward.
All right, so just to throw this on everybody's screen again to kind of recap what Jacob was just talking about there. You can see Adam has 123 points accrued over the season, so that gives him the points lead, but he is already at 18 starts. So Adam's going to start hitting his drop weeks here shortly, and I believe he already is. Whereas somebody like Ty McWhorter and Brandon Burkroff, who haven't hit that 17 race mark, they haven't quite yet had some drop weeks. So we should see, it'll be interesting to see over the next couple of weeks how that Rookie of the Year chase kind of narrows up a little bit. Obviously, Adam's had a strong year. Looking at things, he's had a strong year overall, not just over rookies, but had a good first season for Adam. So he's been a strong driver, but that doesn't mean Ty McWhorter and Brandon Burkroff aren't capable of catching him. So really quickly, rumor has it, I wasn't there, unfortunately. I missed the race on Monday, but we had a commercial on Monday before the race. So really quickly, Tyler, you were the sponsor on Monday's race. You broke us out some Kia. Maybe we won't have Kia tonight, but do you have a little bit of a backstory on how you came up with the sponsor for Monday night's race?
All right, so even though some of you have already heard it, if you're watching here tonight, I went to the backstory of Chef Andy's gourmet lobster rolls and shit. Um, so anyway, pretty much what happened was a few years back there was a league race at New Hampshire where the one commentator was broadcasting it, and his name is Andy Kessler, great guy. Work with him over at LSR TV, so me and him sort of go back to the days when we were running in a different league in the national cars and such, and having some fun times with that. So anyway, he during the middle of the broadcast they cut to commercial, and underneath the commercial break you just hear him go, "Yeah, I could go for some lobster rolls," and it keeps on going like that. So cuts back to commercial. He gives a long-winded apology of how unprofessional it was, so a few of the guys took it on themselves to create an entire fake company in his honor, Chef Andy's Gourmet Lobster Rolls and shit.
All right, so that's an interesting little backstory on how we ended up with the Chef Andy sponsorship on Monday. I've been able to listen to the Kia commercial. Tyler, thanks for the commercial update on Monday. We're looking forward to hearing more commercials from you throughout the year. I'm sure those will be exciting as Jacob kind of rolls his eyes a little bit. But moving on to league updates, really quickly, we're going to go over the caution counts before I pitch it to Jacob, because we do have an appeal, and Jacob will talk about that. You can see, again, if you're unfamiliar with how this works, drivers that are highlighted in yellow, that means they had a caution this past week at Loudon. So you can see here that James Hudson picks up his second caution since the reset there. Scrolling down here, Robert Roche picks up a caution, and then the third caution was charged to Marcus Lambert, but again, that's listed as an appeal. So Jacob, walk us through the league updates from Loudon.
Yeah, well, like we mentioned to start with, there's only 3 cautions, so for the most part, things were pretty simple and straightforward, and no major issues from Loudon. Like it was shown there, though, Marcus has appealed his caution, which was the last caution of the race, with about 4 or 5 to go. So the admins are in the process of looking at that, and then there is a protest that is being processed at this time, and hopefully we'll have some results from that before we get into Indianapolis and have those issues resolved as far as some driver back and forth type stuff, behind the scenes drama. But like I said, other than that, we had a really clean race at New Hampshire, and like I said, looking forward to Indianapolis and going on from there with the clean racing we've had for the past few weeks.
All right, and let's talk about the caution, because I've actually forgotten, and maybe you can refresh my memory. The caution count, does that reset when we hit the chase?
Yeah, it does. The reason it does that really is because we don't want the people who are in the chase to be at an advantage or disadvantage, because obviously when we go into that, intensity is going to pick up because there's, you want to make it to the next round, and we don't want drivers taking advantage of, well, this dude's got 2 cautions or 5 cautions, and hey, if he gets one more, then he's suspended for the next race, or try to finagle a way to make that to kind of tip the scales a little bit. So if you have cautions stacked up, and let me rephrase this. If you get a caution at Richmond, which is in the regular season, that makes you suspended, then you will be suspended for the first chase race, just because we have to finish the penalty from the regular season. But once we're done with Richmond, we're resetting, so everyone's on an equal playing field, and then we're going to go through the chase races from there, the final 10.
All right, so that's an important thing to note that I'm not sure a lot of drivers were clear on. If you do have a caution at Richmond, it can cause a suspension for the first race of the chase. So thanks for that update, and that might change the way some of the drivers race at Richmond, and maybe we'll have a little bit of a better race there. So moving on now to the league, Elkton Golf and Batting Team Challenge, sponsored by the Elkton Golf and Batting Driving Range on Jay Heisman. Lockdown Racing continues to have a stranglehold on the field. They've got 5 wins. They've got the most points. They've, for lack of a better term, dominated the season so far. So a good year going for Lockdown. But an interesting little battle between Integrity Racing Team and 2 Degree Motorsports between the 2 drivers that are guests tonight. Jacob's on the Integrity Racing Team and Tyler's on 2 Degree. Tyler, any feedback that you've noticed so far about the Elkton Golf and Batting Team Challenge?
I honestly had forgotten all about it until right now, since it's in front of my face. Honestly, I don't think about teams out there a whole lot. I know who's on what team relatively, but other than that, I'm just going out there to try and get the best finish that I can, or just try and survive depending on what track it is. So this whole if the team can work its way up and try and challenge Lockdown, that's great. But honestly, I've just been thinking of myself at this point.
Yeah, and I think I'm in the same boat of if I get good finishes for myself, I want to get good, consistent finishes for myself. If it helps the team, great, but it really hasn't changed the way I drive it anyway, except for maybe Daytona. I haven't been able to speak with you guys since the Daytona race took place, and I believe this might have been our first restrictor plate race with the new Elkton Golf and Batting Team Challenge. So Jacob, did that change the way you maybe looked at the race at Daytona, and maybe you try to drive with your teammates a little bit more?
Oh yeah, we our team had a definite plan going into Daytona, and we kind of talked about it a little bit last week. But we had a strategy, and our team almost to perfection pulled off that strategy. We kind of felt comfortable that myself and Hudson and William Dunn are in the chase, or at least close to it anyway. So we wanted to try to either get one of our other 2 guys, either Brandon Kirkman or Trevor Dalton, the win. So we really worked together as a team and strategized and was able to be up front and was pushing for the win. And almost got it. A little mix-up off of 4 kind of cost us that, and allowed Tom Wetmore to win a few weeks ago. But I think a lot of teams really, that's the track where you're really going to see people working together, and really a chess match between the teams to see, try to place their drivers up towards the front to kind of control the pace. So that part of it's really cool to see. And I know our team in particular is I think really hitting its stride and working well together, and it's slowly creeping up on Lockdown. I don't know if we'll get there, but we're sure as heck going to try to get there to try to knock them off the top spot.
So it sounds like the Integrity Racing team is a little bit more organized than 2 Degree, and that's being a member of 2 Degree, I can tell you that's pretty much to be expected. So moving on, looking forward, we only have 1 restrictor plate race where you can really kind of see that team dynamic really play out. And the interesting part about that is the Talladega is also a chase race, and it's one of the last. It's the last track of the round. I believe it's the 2nd round. So should be an interesting dynamic as we go to Talladega. So as we move forward, the next race on the schedule is Indianapolis. So we'll look at the results from last year to kind of look back a little bit for those of you that don't remember. Adam Beneful gets a win at Indianapolis last year, beating Andrew Fayesh by over 8 seconds. So it looks like we had a pretty decent green flag run there at the end. Jacob Fife, finished in 4th. John Hathaway 3rd. Logan Kress 5th. And Tyler Hurd, you got an 8th place finish. A good run for Jay Heishman at 7th. So Tyler, as we head into Indianapolis, you finished 8th last year. Is that a good track for you?
Absolutely not. I have never been able to find out how to properly enter turns 1 and 3, and I just feel like the car is sliding all around when I'm in the center of the corners off, so it's going to be a bit of a challenge, just like how last week I always find New Hampshire to be a challenge. I struggle on flat tracks, and I admit it, I can't get a handle on flat tracks. They always just throw me for such a huge loop that Indy, for me, is going to be a struggle.
I'm the same way. I can't handle the flat tracks, and for some reason, I can never figure out turn two. I can't find a good market at Indianapolis, and it's just always been one of my weaker tracks. Jacob, it's a larger track, so we should see people get spread out a little bit more. Hopefully, we see some green flag racing. What's been your experience at Indianapolis? Have you been able to turn any laps in the set this year?
I haven't had a chance yet to run any laps, but unlike my two to green companions, Indy seems to work a little bit better for me. I know I've had success in the Truck Series. Almost got a win there if it wasn't for Marcus, but I've had a lot of success there. I always look forward to going there, as it's a fun but challenging place to go racing at. And you can have opportunities to try to make moves here and there, but the moves you make are very risk first reward type of thing. I always look at it because you either have to trust the person your passing is going to let you by, or you're going to go in there too wide and you may wreck. So it's as the guys mentioned before, turn two is always a little tricky for me as well, as I in my experience, none of the four corners are really the same, or I don't drive them the same. So it's just kind of getting back in the habit of what each turn demands from you can get a little interesting. But like I said, I am looking forward to it. It's probably another chance for me, depending on who's in the field, for me to try to be up front and try to grab that win to kind of, cut off any chances of me getting kicked out of the chase. So I'm looking forward to it.
All right, so that wraps up our show. That's episode 13 of the Integrity Racing Show. Monday night, we go to Indianapolis. We hope to see a good quality 40-plus car start there again at Indianapolis. We've had a good run here throughout the year. We want to keep that up. So thanks for joining us for episode 13. We'll be back next Thursday night, same time at 8 o'clock for episode 14 of the Integrity Racing Show. Have a good night, everybody.